Have you ever stopped to think about how we keep track of all of our planet's resources? And I mean everything. We're talking minerals buried deep in the ground, vast oil reserves, and even renewable sources like wind and solar. How on earth can you talk about all of those in the same way? Well, today, we're going to dive into a system that tries to do exactly that. It's called the United Nations Framework Classification for Resources, or the UNFC for short. So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at why it's so hard to compare different kinds of resources in the first place. Then, we'll introduce the UNFC as the solution and get into the 3 simple questions it asks. After that, we'll see how those questions create a powerful little code, what that code tells us about a project's status, and finally, we'll talk about why having this universal language is so incredibly important for our future. Alright, so let's kick things off with a big problem. The very reason the UNFC had to be invented. No, really, think about that for a second. One is harnessing sunlight, another is pumping liquid from the earth, and the third is digging up solid rock. They use totally different tech, they have completely different economics, and their impact on the environment is worlds apart. So how is an investor, or a government for that matter, supposed to make a smart decision comparing those 3? Before a system like this existed, it was basically the Wild West, just pure chaos. Everybody was using their own language, their own metrics, and you can imagine what that does. It makes it almost impossible for big investors, for banks, for governments to figure out where to put their money or how to plan for the long haul. It was a massive roadblock to any kind of smart, sustainable development. So to cut through all that noise and confusion, the world needed to get on the same page. It needed a common language, and that is exactly what the UNFC is. At its heart, the UNFC is a single system that you can apply to any resource project. I don't care if it's minerals, oil, wind, or even groundwater. It evaluates every project using the same 3 universal ideas. Is it viable? Is it technically feasible? And how confident are we in the numbers? This is the key takeaway, really. The UNFC gives every project a standardized code, kind of like its own unique DNA sequence, and that code instantly tells you everything you need to know about its status and its potential. It doesn't matter if you're looking at a solar farm in the desert or a cobalt mine in the jungle, the code means the exact same thing. So how does it generate this code? Well, it all comes down to asking 3 simple but very powerful questions for every single project. The first question is all about viability. That's the E-axis. It asks, when you look at the whole picture, the economics, the legal stuff, the social impact, the environmental concerns, does this project actually make sense? Is it a good idea, all things considered? Think of the E-axis like a traffic light. E1 is a bright green light. All the conditions are met, everything's a go. E2 is your yellow light. It looks promising, but maybe there's a permit missing or the market price isn't quite right yet. And E3 is a hard red light. There's a major roadblock and it's just not viable right now. Okay, next up is the F-axis. This is all about technical feasibility. It's a pretty straightforward question. Great idea, but can we actually build it? Do we have the technology, the plans, and the commitment to pull this off? This one's all about how mature the project is. F1 means it's basically shovel-ready. The blueprints are done, the team is in place. F2 is more like a promising draft. The initial studies look good, but we need to do more homework. And F3, that's the idea sketched on the back of a napkin. It's a concept that still needs a lot more data to prove it can even work. And the last piece of this puzzle is the G-axis. This is all about confidence. It asks a simple question. How sure are we about the amount of resource we think we're going to get? Are our estimates based on solid data, or are they more of an educated guess? This scale is all about probability. G1 is your high confidence number. That P90 basically means there's a 90% chance you'll get at least this much. It's the number you can take to the bank. G2 or P50 is your most realistic best guess. And D and G3, that's the optimistic blue sky scenario. There's only a 10% chance of hitting that number, but it shows you the project's absolute maximum potential. All right, so we have our three questions. Is it viable? Is it feasible? How sure are we? Now comes the fun part, where we see how the answers to these questions snap together to create the final code. The logic here is just beautifully simple. You rate the project on the E-axis, then you rate it on the F-axis, and finally on the G-axis. Then you just stick those three numbers together, and that's it. That's your project's unique EFG code. And this right here, this is the gold standard. A project that gets the code E1F1G1 is the absolute dream scenario. It means the project is viable from every angle, socially, economically, environmentally. That's E1. It's technically ready to go. That's F1. And we have a very high degree of confidence in how much resource we'll get. That's G1. This code is a big flashing green light. So now that we see how the codes are built, you can start to imagine how different combinations create this clear spectrum. A spectrum that shows you exactly where a project is on its journey, from being just a vague idea to a real producing asset. Look at how these codes tell a story. If you see a code that starts with E1 and F1, you know it's a go, it's ready for development. If you see something in the E to F2 range, you know it's promising, but there's still work to do. And when you see E3, F3, 3, especially with that G4, you know, you're looking at a very early stage exploration play, an idea that's based more on geological theory than on hard evidence. Okay, so we've gone through all the technical bits, but why does any of this really matter? Why go to all this trouble? Well, because having the single common language has a massive impact in the real world. This isn't just some academic exercise. This framework is used everywhere, at every level. Governments use it to create their national resource policies. International groups use it to manage resources on a global scale. Companies build it into their business plans, and maybe most importantly, finance folks use it to decide where they're going to invest billions of dollars. It brings clarity and confidence to absolutely enormous decisions. And this right here might be the most critical point of all. The UNFSC is not just a tool for engineers and accountants anymore. The most recent version was specifically updated to align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It helps make sure that when we develop our planet's resources, we're not just thinking about profit, but we're also being socially responsible and environmentally sustainable. So that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. In order to manage the finite resources we all depend on, we first have to be able to measure them and talk about them in a way that everyone everywhere understands. And as we face more and more challenges, maybe this ability to speak a single clear language about our planet's resources isn't just nice to have. Maybe it's the most essential tool we've got.